Greetings, welcome back to CS195 Web Development. We're on week 7, CSS Layouts Part 2. So this is CSS Flexbox. We're now into the more advanced stuff, so we're not just kind of moving stuff around or fixing its position. We're actually going to start using divs with inside of divs to start organizing really the layout of our page. So this is probably more focusing on the actual layout than just moving stuff around. So we learned how to float last, which was mostly best with pictures. So what did that do? That's the question of the lesson. But our objective for this is to understand Flexbox. What is it? How do you set it up? And then our success criteria is demonstrating adding the proper divs around the elements that need to be flexed, so you can add a CSS rule that flexes those divs. All right, and that kind of gives a little hint of how this is going to work. We'll watch a quick video. None of this next layout stuff is in con. So we're going to go ahead and try this out. And then I'll also kind of go over what you're going to do for your challenges as well, because they are going to be slightly different. So we'll watch this video real quick and then we'll test it out ourselves.
Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to your second Flexbox tutorial, and in this video we're going to talk about flex.
So we went ahead and skipped the first one real quick. He just kind of went over the basic concepts. Here's where he actually shows how to do it.
Containers. Overview of how Flexbox works, and it went something like this.
So again, exactly, he just kind of talked about the basic concepts. So we'll spend a little bit of time right now talking about it as well, and again. But the basic concept is you're going to have an outer div. And then on the inside, you're going to go ahead and have these inner divs. And normally, they're going to want to stack on top of each other, because that is the default, right? The block method is they want to stack on top of each other. So flex is what allows us to put it side by side by side, right? That is what we're trying to get to, is to move stuff side by side.
We first have to create a container, an element with a display type of flex, so that every direct descendant element within it then becomes a flex item. So once we've done that, we can then control the behavior of those flex items using several Flexbox CSS properties either applied to the items themselves.
So, and I'll show you a link to this. We're not going to go over. There's so many different things. You can change the order, the sizes, how you spread them out, all kinds of different things. How many go across before wraps under. There's a ton of different settings. I'll show you where to find them, but we're just going to really show how the base setting works and go through this video up until that point and then try it out.
Or the container. And that behavior includes things like how they grow within the container, or how they shrink relative to each other, or whether they stack on top of each other or side by side. That kind of thing. So there's loads of things we can do with them. In this tutorial, we're just going to take a look at creating a container and some flex items within them, just to have a look at its most basic behavior. Okay then, gang, so I'm in this index.html file in the root of the project folder, and remember, you can find these files on my GitHub page. I'll leave the link down below if you want to follow along. And I've also got open this styles.css file, which is in the root directory as well. So this index file, dead simple, just got a head right here with the title and that style.css file linked up. Then in the body, we've just got a class of wrapper on a div, which is going to keep everything within a central column on the page. So what I'm going to do is create an element which will become our flex container. So I'll make a div tag. Then I'm going to give this a class of flex-container. So there's our container. Now within it, we want to include some flex items. So let's do another div. This time I'm going to give it a class of box.
Now I'm going to point this out real quick. That class wrapper on the outside, to get this to work, you don't actually need that, right? He could have just straight done the boxes inside of it. But realize line 9 to 11 right now, he's going to create everything you need. You just need an outside div and then divs inside of that. And class wrapper is not needed at this point.
I'm also going to give it another class of 1. So I'll copy that and I'm going to paste it a couple of times down below, like that. And I'm going to give this one a class of 2. And the reason I'm giving them separate classes as well as box is so that I can style them differently. So now we've got our container there and our flex items to be within it, directly within it. So let's go to the style.css, and the way we make this a flex container is just by using the display type of flex. So we'll say flex-container, that's the element we want, and we'll give this a display of flex, and voila.
And then voila, nothing happens because there's nothing inside of those, which is why, and he's going to do it too, you give them backgrounds and width and stuff so you can actually see something as you're navigating around this. He's going to use backgrounds for the same reasons we do. There's something you can actually see. You take them away later. But right now you can't see anything, even though technically he has this completely set up ready to go in 3 columns.
That now, guys, is a flex container. But I don't want to show you this just yet. I want the effect to be a little bit more significant after we've styled the boxes. So let's style those boxes first of all. So every single one of the boxes is going to have a height of 100 pixels. It's also going to have a min width value of 100 pixels too. Now I'm going to style each one differently, and I'm just going to give them different background colors. So the first one is going to have a background of red. The second one, which is 2, is going to have a background of blue. And then the third one, which is 3, is going to have a background of green. Alright, so now we've got this flag kind of thing going on over here.
And you also notice they're on top of each other. Now he gave them by default, the width takes up the full width, so 100%. When your normal divs, without being inside the flex, right, the flex is commented out right now, they're going to go all the way across, and he had to give them a height or they still wouldn't have shown, right? So he gave them all a height, as well. He's also going to give them min width, because when we flex, you'll see that they're going to shrink down as well. That width isn't going to take up any space. So that's why he gave them a min width, which we'll see in a little bit. But we're gonna do this. So look at how he has this. We're gonna do this so we can see what it looks like, and then we'll make some modifications to ours so it looks more like a web page.
And you notice each one of these elements right here is going full width. That's the default behavior, right, of block level elements. They take up the full width of the available space horizontally. And these are all block level elements, so that's why it's doing it currently. Okay, check out what happens when I uncomment this and set the container to flex. Boom. Now all of these are flex items, and this is the default behavior of flex items. They stack left to right in a row like that, okay? And now that these are flex items, we can do all kinds of cool things with them to change how they grow, how they shrink. We can add space between them. We can make them stack on top of each other. Loads of different things. All right, now I want you to imagine as well how we do this without flex.
All right, so we're not going to go into that. We don't need to look at the float concept, and I already mentioned float is a pain to do stuff like this. You can do it. Don't recommend it. That's why we're learning flex, and then we're going to go to grid next lesson. But again, these were all on top of each other. If you wanted to create columns like it is here, you want to make them go across. There's not a lot of options. I mean, trying to do this with position, trying to do this with float, it doesn't work very well. So again, that is the basis of it, that div with inside a div. And this link right here takes you to what I was talking about with all the different things that you can do. So these are the things for the outside. These are all the properties that you can give to the outside, and these are the properties for the inside. So again, you want to change the direction it goes. You want to space them out, right? There's all kinds of different things that you can do. You want it to wrap, and how much till it wraps. There's all kinds of ideas that you can use. We're just going to do the very, very base. You can come back here if you want to try to do something else. But let's go ahead and jump right into this thing, full screen. Make it bigger. And then I'm going to try to make it somewhat useful for what you're going to do as well. This time I gave a bunch of the CSS, but I didn't go ahead and put any or much of it. So again, this div all, again, you can call it wrapper, container. This is the one we're going to put everything in. So eventually we're going to flex this so the divs inside of it are going to change. I'm going to change this from white to green real quick. I recommend as well because white's not going to show up all that much because the background's already white. So let's go ahead and try this out. So let's give it a div. And then we want to give them IDs so we can actually change them. Again, he, him classes. There's all kinds of different ways to do this, but I'm just going to give them IDs. So ID equals quotes. And then this is going to be our left one. And see, as soon as I did that, it came red. That's that red box. And I went ahead and already shrunk it to a square because I already gave it a width. So it'll be a square, 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 and then we'll see the shift better. But by default, this red wants to go all the way across. So do note that. And also, I show that because the all is a div that's surrounding it, and it wants to go all the way across. So the red would want to go all the way across too, but I already made it a square. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this a couple more times. And then I'm going to give it the mid and the right. And again, notice they're all on top of each other. I'm going to make this pink so we can see it real quick. All right. So we see them a lot better, right? We have our left, we have our mid, and our right, except for that's not left, that's not mid, and that's not right. And this is how simple Flex is, right? I mean, the hardest thing was just getting this set up. We have to have the outer div and then divs inside of it. And then everything, we can add another div down and they just go. We have 2 divs if we wanted. But all we go is head up to all, display like he had, flex. And poof, they go next to each other. Now, this is not a very good web page, but we could easily fix this up. Let's go ahead and just make these, instead of width 50, let's make this 33%. Let's make this one 33%. And let's make this one 34%. All right. And we can make it 33. You're not going to really notice much of a difference. Well, you can see what notice a difference. So 34. So it takes up the whole percent, right? That equals 100%. Essentially, we have these in thirds. Still not necessarily a whole use. So well, let's change these to 550. All right, now if they had text in them, they'd fill whatever that text is, right? So if I had a bunch of just gibberish in there and it filled up the whole entire thing, then it would just fit it, right? So again, we've already played with this before. If I change this, if I just get rid of the height on all of these, then it's gonna take the whatever it has. So, and you can also, there's other, so you can see it takes up whatever the height of the longest one is. So all the rest of them took up the same height of that. There is a nice feature, you can do the min width like he was doing. So if there's not something there, it'll at least have a little bit of space until you get something there. But for now, we're just gonna have a bunch of gibberish there. And we have columns, and they could be different things. I mean, this could be you could change this around. Let's make this one 20%. Let's make this one, say 40%, 40%. And then this could be our, I don't know, let's actually make it look a little bit neater. Enter that, and then we'll enter that. Make this look like an actual web page. All right, so we're gonna enter. We're gonna just make these because we're actually gonna put stuff inside of them now. So I could put like an H1 inside of here, right? Or an H2 would probably, because right we're inside a little bit. And then I can do links. So here are all my links. They could be links. This is my menu. Again, it's percentages. So as you go, this is a nice little menu bar. So the next we can do is like an article. So we have an H2 in here, articles. All right, so all the articles are in here. And then maybe the last one is your pictures. So again, however you are setting up your page, you could set up like this. And then you just get, once you're done, maybe you put some borders around them, maybe you don't, but you can get rid of the backgrounds because they look silly. Oops. All right, we get rid of the backgrounds, and then they still have their columns. Those columns are still there for you to look at. So that's the basis of this. And say we wanted to put something across the top of it, right? We could add another div. And give an ID equals top. And then we can put like our H1 in here, right? So maybe this is our, title of page. And we could center it. Again, sometimes you use the inline just so you can see what it looks like. Text align, center. So normally don't do that. But now if we actually put things around it, we'd have a header that goes all the way across like this. And I can do that by show you that background purple. So we have our header, and if we add all these colors back, and there we go. We have a nice little header. If we wanted to give this some margin, actually we get padding. Remember, padding's on the inside, padding. And now it's starting to look like this. We could get rid of this space if we wanted to, right? That's easy enough to just give it, take away the padding. We can do padding or margin 0, and that'll make that space go away, and it'll look like something. So I do this real quick like this because our project, and it's not really a project, this is the assignment for this thing. We have a journal entry, so there's a journal entry, but our assignment for this is trying to make something, and it's trying to make this. So again, you're going to try to make this and give me a link to your HTML code. Again, and we kind of already did this, right? We kind of already did this. You can do margin and padding to make the spaces, divs. This is the biggest piece. You need to flex in order to make this. So you add a picture in there. And anywhere you see this, it's a picture. These are words. So you're just adding a picture, adding some text. It doesn't have to be about anything. Say these are some words, and then a little footer at the bottom. So you're going to make this all with Flexbox. And key to it is you don't actually need Flexbox to do it all. You only have to actually flex to get this center piece of it. And we just kind of did most of that. So that's what you're going to do as a little mini assignment. You're going to make this with that. So there's also some extra videos if you wanted to watch tutorial 1, and then a little bit more Flexbox from Traversy Media. So with that, that's Flexbox in a nutshell. Have a great night. We'll see you next lesson.